right, here now with Gloucester Police Chief Ed Conley. Thanks for joining us once again, Chief.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So how are you doing personally since we've last chatted?
I think we're, moving into the state of new normal. I feel like the operations that were initially when we put all these procedures into place, figuring out who could work remotely, having them get laptops and set up and still be able to log in, the different postures we've had in patrol and detectives. I think at this point, everybody's sort of, fallen into the routine, as they say. So in that sense, I feel like operations have smoothed out and we're all, accepting the new normal.
So now as we start to see the weather improve and people are getting really antsy being cooped up all the time, we've noticed there are definitely hot spots around the city where people are congregating just to get fresh air, move around. Can you just explain where some of those hot spots are and how you're policing them?
Sure. So where do you think they'd be? So, the Boulevard, Good Harbor Beach, down at Niles Beach. These are popular areas year round, right? And particularly in the summer when nicer weather, happens, people want to be and enjoying these beautiful spaces that we have in Gloucester. And right now, pursuant to the governor's orders, they can. This is not a shelter in place order. People are asked to stay home, but everybody understands that everybody's home is different. So, I'm lucky that my home has a yard and we can walk around, but not everybody has that. Some people live in apartments, and I can't imagine what it would be like not being able to get out and enjoy the fresh air. So, having said that, we have put certain things into place. This is one of the reasons why we've kept the parking lots closed. We recently closed Niles parking because of the proximity to, what is not really a sidewalk, but a proximity to where pedestrians kind of pass by Niles. So we've put some of these things that are designed to engineer some distance between people that are enjoying the open space.
Has it been is it a pain to police this, or are people cooperating?
I think the vast majority of people are cooperating. I mean, I really do. And it's not a pain to police. And, the instructions that I've given to the department and the officers have certainly done a great job at following is, our primary purpose is to educate people about social distancing. So that's done by, simple distance, speaking with people from a distance officer to a group of people, or getting on the cruiser, PA system and making an announcement. On the busy days, we've hired an extra car, we call it a special enforcement car, to go around to these so-called hotspot areas and just monitor and make periodic announcements about social distancing and the importance of it. In cases, which we really haven't had one yet, but in cases where we have somebody that's not going to comply, or we have a sporting event and this has just been an ongoing thing, we do have a mechanism of writing a warning and then followed by a fine of $300. But we haven't had to do that. Yeah, everybody has complied.
Well, that's good. Chief Conley, when we spoke the last time, we talked about crime rates being lower, if not normal, and not seeing a rise at all at that point. As we have begun to experience so much more stress as this pandemic goes on, and we have also this economic crisis, without being too specific, are you seeing the signs of stress in the community?
I wouldn't say, certainly I'm sure everybody's aware that the boat ramp issue kind of percolated last week, and what's going to happen with that, and that's being worked out. I think there was some miscommunication initially. I wouldn't say miscommunication as much as a misunderstanding of what was happening. I think the city decided, through Karen Carroll, the Board of Health, just to take a call a timeout for a second and just shut until we can come up with a plan. And I thought that was reasonable, and I know they're actively working, and we're all as a team working to come up with a plan to do that. But you just saw that one issue result in a lot of pushback, immediate sort of pushback from the community. So that to me is a signal that people are at, getting to their wits' end, and they want to see an endpoint. And I think, the symbolic gesture, of the idea we might not have boat ramps open, I think that impacts someone, psychologically, because that might be the one thing that they're holding on to, particularly in Cape Ann and particularly in Gloucester. And I think, we'll have a plan for that moving forward.
That's a really good point. That was a symbol for so many people of things may not be normal right away. Yeah, and where the tensions are.
Well, I mean, you know how the seasons work around here. There's winter, there isn't really spring, and then fiesta. And everyone just kind of has their eyes on summer. Like, you can't take summer away from me, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if the stay-at-home order sort of, if this gets extended from that May 4th date, and then how people behave after that.
Right.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Although if, we see spikes around the country, they may begin to understand it too. I think Massachusetts has done a really good job so far with the stay-at-home advisory, and people have obliged. So the numbers are beginning to flatten out. So it works.
Yeah, and I think the mayor's office, working with Karen Keller over at the Board of Health, have been, really thoughtful about what type of orders we put in place based on the data and based on the science, rather than just having a blanket order or, falling back on sort of like just shut everything down. They've really taken a hard look at, here in Gloucester, how can we accomplish the mission of keeping people safe and by separating them and reducing exposure opportunity, but also understand that our community, needs access to open space just for mental health, reasons like all of us do.
Right.
Well, Chief, I was going to ask, what's the state of the health for the department? I mean, physical and mental, because this must be taxing for the force as well.
So my computer's laying on some wood right now, and I'm knocking on it. But we've been very fortunate. We've been very fortunate that we've only had one officer that tested positive. That officer is in recovery. We've had a few others we put on quarantine just as a precautionary measure, none of which ended up having a positive test. So very, very fortunate compared to some other departments, particularly some of the larger ones. In terms of their morale, it's incredibly high. I think this is a mission, and as I've communicated to them and we've talked about, this is, this is like sort of a watershed moment in our careers. This is something where, we're at sort of the front line of this along with a lot of other people. And this is something you look back on your career and there are a handful of moments when you really, you're operating in history, and that's what's happening. And I think they appreciate that. And I think they understand the importance of the work they're doing.
That's really poignant. Could I just ask about testing? Do you guys get tested with any sort of regularity? Are the tests available to you?
So there are some. So right now, the way the procedure works is if you are a police officer or first responder for that matter, and you have reason to believe that you have been exposed, so you've been around somebody that's symptomatic or has tested positive in an unprotected fashion, or you have some symptoms consistent with COVID-19 yourself, you can, through your primary care physician, get a test. And testing has been sort of the beginning of all this. It was really difficult to find a test or get a test if you didn't already have symptoms. Now it's a little bit easier. They're more available to us. There are some locations that you can drive. It's a drive-through location, and there are some locations that are actually delivering tests and your results by the end of the day. It's sort of variable, and sometimes those locations pop up and they have all kinds of capacity, and then the capacity dwindles and they shut down for a little while, and another one pops up. So far, I'd say within the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've not had any problems getting a test for anybody we thought needed to be tested. But in terms of getting tested just for the sake of getting tested, we're not doing that. That's just not at this point where tests still are, they're still not available to everybody. So we want to be thoughtful about how we utilize the tests that do exist.
Right. Well, anything else you think the community would like to know from you right now?
I think, I know there's been some talk about speeding maybe being on the increase in the neighborhoods. I would tell you that, interestingly, pulled some data, accident data, and for year to date, from January till today of 2020 compared to the same date range last year in 2019, we're down 20% in accidents. Yeah, and actually, from March to today, comparing the same date ranges, we're down 43% in motor vehicle accidents.
That's amazing. Wow.
So there's clearly there's a lot less vehicles on the road, so you would expect some decrease. And I have no doubt that there are people that are taking advantage of less vehicles and maybe being a little bit more of a lead foot. We are aware of that. We're monitoring it. We're actually rolling out. We just received new speed signs, the ones you see, the flash, give you the sad face of, going too fast. We just received 2 of those. They're being prepped at the DPW yard, and we hope to put those into operation shortly.
Are any particular zones they'll go into where you are?
Heather, don't start. She wants to
Yeah,
go
nice try. Nice try. Yeah. We receive feedback from the community via email and via their representatives in the city council and certainly through the mayor's office. And I track that feedback, and we see patterns where we get a lot of complaints about particular areas, and I've kept those, and we'll try to be thoughtful when we put those. But the interesting thing about this the 2 pieces of equipment is that they have the capability of doing an analysis of the traffic. So they can count the vehicles going by in a particular area at a particular time and their speed. So we can see, we can put one of these units in a place for say a week or 2, and we can see if the data actually matches the perception of the community, which, is always, it's always kind of a difficult conversation to say, well, one of the reasons why people may be perceiving a lot more, speeding is because a lot more people are walking. And if you're walking and a car drives by you, it can be perceived as traveling a lot faster than it actually is. But you know what? We'll know. We'll put one of these things out. We'll find out what the data says, and we'll share that.
We will talk to you about that because I'm forward to it. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today, and we hope to see you again soon.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate
Stay
it.
safe, Chief. We'll see you soon.
Take care. Bye.